Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Jennifer.
Welcome to our Sunday morning celebration here at the Temple of Light Center for Spiritual Living in Kingston, Jamaica. I am practitioner Jennifer Livingstone, and it is my absolute pleasure to host in this morning's service. And boy, are we in for a treat. And so, on this beautiful, absolutely gorgeous day, if you can see the poinciana that I am looking out at, it's orange, it's flaming orange, and it's just beautiful. I just ask you to pool your consciousness with me this morning as we do the opening of prayer. Oh, in this glorious Sunday morning, this is the day that the Lord hath made. We're glad and rejoicing it. We recognize the presence and power that which brought us into being, that shall be in this morning's service. That presence, God, and we are one with it. And there's no I speak this voice, so that every person who's brought us in this morning, every person who is online and with my voice, that tuned in, heard it, tapped in, and know that prayer I express this morning's service is an idea of transform. And so our special speaker this morning, I am knowing that he is truly an inspiration for this morning celebration. And so I simply we allow ourselves to be fully present in each and every moment of this morning's celebration as we become tuned in right where we are, knowing that the presence and power of God is right here with us. I accept this, I believe this, and I know that this is the truth as I joyously release this word into that infinite law of mind that has already said yes. Yes to this morning's idea of a Sunday morning service. Thank you, God, that this is so now. And so it is. And so as I allow all of us to get settled in, let us begin with our chant. I am so blessed, and that's on page 2 of your program. Please join me in a few moments of silence as we gently close our eyes and go within, knowing that the Lord is in his holy temple, that all the earth keeps silence here before him. And so it is.
So it is.
Friends, please join me in this morning's inspirational reading, which comes to us from the Science of Mind magazine, and it's from September of 2022, and it says, it's entitled Infinite Paths. And it says, our single stream of thought, daily sent out into creation, into creative mind, will do wonders. Within a year, the person who will practice this will come completely changed as the condition of their lives. And that is a quote from Creative Mind and Success, page 49, by Dr. Ernest Holmes. And it reads, confusion filled my mind as I entered my meditation practice, hoping to discover an answer to or a sign for a specific path to choose. My eyes slowly closed just as my mind became still. Another thought burst through the doorway of my consciousness to interrupt the sacred stillness I sought. My breath helped. Those intrusive thoughts subsided as I became more aware of the present moment. As I entered this space of silence, a divine download entered my heart. At this moment, I realized the path I was meant to take. I was encompassed in 3 words: share your message. Each day brings with it a blank canvas we can use any way we choose. Unfortunately, for myself and many like me, confusion within ourselves ultimately colors this blank canvas with more confusion. Or even worse, we continue to recreate past experiences only to look back after many months or years and see why nothing has changed. There are endless paths that call out to us. However, since we are the creator of our experiences, you and I must choose which path we take. This being said, even the path of not knowing which path to take is creating a path for itself. Let us be attentive and aware of the direction of which we choose as we create our lives. Where are you going and why? And the quote says, I am intentionally creating my life experience. Can we say that together? I am intentionally creating my life experience. And so it is. And now, let us go to the lighting of the candle for our youth. I light this candle on behalf of all the youth of the world. Let us behold the Christ in them. And I'll invite them to come up as I'm lighting the candle. And I'm being blessed this morning because Kevin is lighting the candle for me, so all I have to do is stand here and look pretty. Thank you, Kevin. Let us say the blessing that's at the top of page 3 of your program. No, I'm sorry, it's in the middle of the page 2 of your program. We love you, we appreciate you, we salute the Christ in you, and we see you as shining lights onto your world. God is blessing you now, and so it is. And now please join us in our mission song. It's words on screen and in your program.
Temple of light, the temple of light, the temple of light. We are a people with a vision, one in spirit on a mission. To touch, to heal, to bless, to prosper, to love and liberate anyone who comes into contact with us, anytime, night or day. The temple of light, the temple of light, the temple of light. We are a people with a vision, one in spirit on a mission. To touch, to heal, to bless, to prosper, to love and liberate anyone who comes into contact with us, anytime, night or day.
Yay! Thank you so much. Now off to Sunday school and young adult workshop for you. Thank you. Awesome. And so as they go off, please join me in the affirmation of divine love. And that's in the bottom of page 2 in the program. Together.
Divine love is doing its perfect work here and now.
Divine love harmonizes. Divine love adjusts.
Divine love prospers. Divine love foresees everything and richly provides every good thing for this church now. Divine love is now victorious, and so it is.
Indeed. Friends, let us join in this morning's announcement. So just listen cleanly. There are just a few brief announcements. But let's begin with any first-time visitors here in the sanctuary or online. And we all seem to be family this morning. So we behold the Christ in you. And if you are online, we behold the Christ in you too. Our flowers this morning were beautifully arranged by Mrs. Judith Dare, one of our floral angels, and we thank Judith for these wonderful arrangements. Now you can refer to your program for the significant events, but just to highlight some of those happening, and one of which is right after this morning's service. Please join Reverend Michael Record for his discovery session. And this morning, his topic is on effective communication. So please join us at 10:30 here in the sanctuary and also online, and join in that discussion on effective communication. And I'm sure we can all learn how to do that more effectively. And then there's Spiritual Mind Healing Service on Tuesday at 6 p.m. And this week, practitioner Steve Golding will be the speaker at that healing service. And so we want you to tune in, not to be missed. You know, he always has some very creative ideas for his service on a Tuesday. So please tune in, 6 p.m. And then, as a reminder, please be reminded that our membership pledge for 2023 is due. And so you can pick up an envelope on the desk in the vestibule, or if you're going to pledge online, remember to visit our donate.templeoflightcsl.org and make your donations. Now, I'd like to also take a moment to say thank you, very special thank you, to our sponsors of our Mother's Day event that we had on the 14th. I know last week Reverend Ann said briefly thanks to all of you who supported, but I'd like to highlight the sponsors. And these are the companies that contributed towards making that event a success. And those are Mega Marketing through their Columbina line of products, Jamaican Teas, Just Sugar Beauty Bar, The Natural Bulk Chemicals and Beauty Products, Mars Skincare, and Guess What Games. And so we'd like to give those sponsors a round of applause and to say thank you for their generosity. And of course, we know they are the temple stalwarts who will always support us in these events, and so we also want to applaud them and say thank you. You know who those are. But, friends, you'd think would have done with just a come, because guess what? Calling all fathers, stepfathers, godfathers, grandfathers. Yes, it's a day for dads. What am I talking about? Join us this June 18 for Let's Celebrate Dads from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. right here in the sanctuary, where you, all the males in our congregation and all the males that you know, that you should ask them to be a part of this informative session. It will be a series of talks on financial tips. There will be financial planning, health tips, grooming tips, car care tips, vehicle security, a whole array of subjects and topics that we are inviting the males in our congregation to be here. So if you have any loved ones who you want to celebrate Father's Day with, it's from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. for these informative talks. Refreshment will be provided. The contribution is $1,000, and there will be lots of fun, vibes, and entertainment. So please do support us. I'm looking forward to you spreading the words. You'll see our flyer coming out this week online, and we ask for your support, as always, to make the event a success. So that's something that you can do for your own father or for some male in your life on Father's Day, Sunday, June 18th. And then classes. Let me begin with the immediate class that starts this Thursday, and it's entitled Self-Mastery, the Emergence of the True Self. And it's being conducted by Reverend Sonia Davidson, assisted by practitioner Vance Gardner and practitioner Steve Golding. And we'd ask you to register online at classes.csl.org, where you'll find all the details and the cost for this class. But remember, there's a Thursday class starting this week at 7 p.m., and you don't want to miss these series of classes. So please check our website and do sign up. And then, of course, there is the master class. How many of you have already signed up for master class 2023? Well, remember that's coming up on October 27th, and it's a weekend at Jamaica, where is it now? Jewel's Jamaica, Jewel's Paradise Cove, not Jewel's Jamaica, Jewel's Paradise Cove, and that's out in Runaway Bay, and you don't want to miss that weekend. Remember, we're asking you to come in and make your payments, because we too have to make payments to the providers who are going to allow us to be a part of this event. So we've already paid down on the hotel, but we need to pay down for our bus service and all the other things that will go with that. Remember, the cost is US $470 for double occupancy and US $655 for single occupancy. And we're quoting the rates in US because of the change in the exchange rates. So we want you to be mindful of that. We will still accept your payments in Jamaican dollars, but we are asking you to just note that whatever it is for the equivalent of $470 for double occupancy or $655 for single occupancy, that's the required Jamaican amount that we will need. And so you need to come in, start making your payments so that we can continue our arrangements. And please remember our speaker, most importantly for this master class, is the eminent Dr. Dennis Merritt Jones. You don't want to miss this. And so friends, prayer support. You know, we are never without prayer support here at the temple. And so if you are in need of prayer support, a practitioner is on duty to pray with you. And this morning, right after service, practitioner Tamu Davidson will be the person who you can call at 876-289-0907. And if you wish to speak to a practitioner, Mondays to Fridays from 8 a.m. to midnight, you can call the same number, 876-289-0907. And of course, pastoral counseling is available by appointment. Please call the office. And the office number is 876-9276145. And friends, we want to say thank you for our, I'm not even sure what I'm thanking for at this point in time, but I see Auntie Lil up here, so I guess the thank you is appropriate at this point in time. Auntie Lilith, you want to do your thank yous for us? Go ahead.
Family, we want to thank everyone who supported the Labor Day project. But I know the Labor Day committee will come probably next week and give you some more details. However, my role now is just to tell you who was the winner of the Dutch auction. The Dutch auction was done on Labor Day, and it is for a Cabernet Sauvignon. And the winner, we collected what we aimed to collect and a little more. And the winner of the Dutch auction, and don't think that this is incestuous, but the winner was Shima Davidson.
Thank you, Auntie. Thank you, Auntie Lil. And so that's a very special thank you to Chima and all the persons for Labor Day. So you want to come up and make the presentation in front of the cameras.
Oh, Shima, I didn't realize you were here. Here you are. You're surprised, aren't you? Yes. She can't even talk. This is your Cabernet Sauvignon that you won at the Dutch auction on Labor Day.
Thank you again, Auntie Lil, and the members of the Ministry of the Environment and their Labor Day activity. And so my final thank you is to all of you who continue to help us to be a beacon of light in this world. And so we want to thank you for your donations, offerings, and tithes. And if you want to continue to help us to be a beacon of light in the world, please visit our donate.templeoflightcsl.org, where you will find all our banking details. This concludes our announcements, and please join me in saying our sacred covenant first, and that's on a flyer in your program. You can be seated for this. Together, God is the ultimate absolute spirit as leader, shepherding us into creative, inspiring, and inspired spiritual pathways of unconditional love and serenity.
We are one with God. Therefore, our new minister is an instrument of source energy, rooted in principle, and embodying spiritual consciousness as a charismatic, engaging, vibrant, inspiring leader. Our new minister is a creative thinker, passionate about growth, inspiring to our youth, and be able to create a vibe across all age groups. Our minister brings a good balance of fun, passionate engagement, warmth and empathy, and a great sense of humor. There is only one of us here. Thus, individually and collectively, we know there is no separation between our new minister, ourselves, and the people of our beautiful island, Jamaica. We let go of all doubt and limited thinking as we welcome change and fully embrace the joy of a new adventure with our new minister. We accept a new paradigm that inspires the consciousness of prosperity and abundance, manifesting in innovative ways of thinking, being, and acting, which is outpictured in, through, and as a deep soul connection with our new minister. Together we join our hearts and hands to bless, prosper, and enrich our temple of light, and to accomplish all our goals as we build our community. With heartfelt gratitude, we release these words to law, trusting and surrendering to the guidance of Spirit for the perfect outcome. And so it is.
And so it is indeed, friends, as you continue to know with us the emergence of our new senior pastor. And so we just ask you to prayerfully continue to say the sacred covenant with us every morning. So please carry home this flyer with you and use it this week. And now, please stand as we go into the prayer of our center. And that too is on a flyer in your program. Words on screen. Together, the Temple of Light Center for Spiritual Living is a sacred field embodying our spiritual community from which the Christ peace, love, and joy emanate to touch, to heal, to bless, to prosper, and to liberate anyone who comes into contact with it in any way. The light of the Christ illumines us, our center, and our environment. Our spiritual community is filled with and surrounded by the presence of God and is growing from strength to strength. The power of God expands our consciousness of truth, guiding us ceaselessly along the paths of wisdom, spiritual growth, unfoldment, and attainment. We are blessed, and to God be the honor and the glory forever. And so it is. And please remain standing as we do our praise song. And that's Sing a Song. That's on page 3.
Sing your praise.
Thank you. Temple of Light Choir, please be seated. Beautiful. And now, please join me in 3 short affirmative meditations. We'll be doing for health, for life, and for love. And so, as I do these meditations, you may accept them for yourselves or for anyone else who you call to mind. Just silently affirm that you're accepting it. And so please tune in as we become still in this moment, recognizing that presence and power, God, that which brought us into being and created each one of us out of itself and called it good. And so I'm knowing that that presence, which is the health of God, is now expressed in, through, and as each one of us. Our physical bodies, the temple of the living Spirit Almighty. I know that that energy which is God is now flowing through us in perfect right order. Every cell, every tissue, every fiber of our being is touched into wholeness because we know there is not a spot where God is not. And so I know that anything unlike the health of God this morning is dissolved and dissipated into the nothingness from whence it came. And so I know for each one of us within the sound of my voice that that health of God is now flowing freely and easily and effortlessly through our limbs this morning. I know we move with grace and ease upon this pathway of light and enlightenment. And so we have perfect assimilation, perfect anticipation, and perfect elimination. I give thanks for this effervescent energy of life as I release this word to law, giving thanks that all this is already so. And so it is. God is held, that health surrounds me. In that health I safely dwell. Peace above, beneath, within me. Health is mine and all is well. God is health, pure health. God is health, sweet health. The health is mine, and all is well. This is an affirmative prayer of life, of creative self-expression. I am knowing that God is life, that life now emanates from each one of us. It expresses through each of us individually and all of us collectively. And so I know that that life, which is God, is now directing every area of our experience. I am knowing that each one of us determines the experiences of our lives. And so I know that every decision that we need to take as we move on this pathway of our life experience this morning, I am knowing that these decisions are made in infinite knowledge of that presence and power which guides us unerringly. I am knowing that as we seek to know our divine calling, that which we are called to do, I am knowing that we make these choices in the full knowledge that we are supported by that ever-present power and presence, which is God. I am knowing that truly our life's expression is truly a beacon of light in this world. And so as we simply allow God to express through each of us this day and every day of our lives, I know we give thanks for that ever-present life force that has called us into being and is now expressing fully and freely our life's calling. I accept this, I believe this, and I release this word to law, giving thanks that all this is already so. And so it is.
God is life, that life surrounds me. In that life I safely dwell. Peace above me.
And so as we know that that presence, which is God, that brought us into being, that which gave us the health of our countenance and the light of wisdom as we call forth our life's experience, we know that that presence now allows us to be the love that we are. I am knowing that that love now guides every decision that we make. I am knowing that that love allows us to be one with each other. That love which called us into being and we said, yes, here I am, send me. I am knowing that we allow this love to emanate from us. It touches into wholeness every person with whom we come into contact this day and throughout this week. I am knowing that that love emanates from our heart center as that glow, that warmth, which allows us to just be that beacon of light in our world. And so I know that love is who we are and love is what we do. And so as we embody this love, we are loving, lovable, and loved. And so I accept this love as our experience now for each one of us. And we simply allow love to be circulated throughout our community, into our island Jamaica, indeed throughout the entire cosmos. We let love be the way of our hearts and the hearts of our way this morning. I accept this, I believe this, and I know this to be the truth. As I lovingly release this word to law, I give thanks that all this is already so. And so it is.
God is love, that love surrounds me. In that love I safely dwell. It's above, beneath, within me. Love is mine, and all is well. God is love, pure love. God is love, sweet love. That love is mine, mine, and all is well.
And from that place of love, please join me in our first hymn selection this morning. It's on our flyer and words on screen. Be thou my vision. Please stand.
Be thou my vision, O Lord of my heart. Not me, all else to me, save that thou art. Thou my best thought, by day or by night. Waking or sleeping, thy presence my light. Be thou my wisdom, and thou my true word. I ever with thee, and thou with me, Lord. Thou my great Father, my true Son. Thou in me dwelling, and I with thee one. Riches I heed not, nor man's empty praise. Thou mine inheritance, now and always. Thou only, first in my heart. My King of heaven, my treasure thou art.
Thank you, friends. Please be seated. And now get ready for that treat that I am so excited about this morning. I don't know if you know how much I've been twitching and waiting for this moment to introduce our speaker for this morning's Practitioner Sunday, someone who we haven't heard from in a little bit, but I am sure will bring us that measure of talk that we know he always delivers when he comes to the program. Our speaker this morning is a consultant a manager of several international projects. He's an ardent student of this teaching, and he is also a practitioner of the science of mind. Friends, please help me welcome to our podium our speaker this morning, Mr. Clive Edwards.
Good morning, all.
Good morning, Clive.
It's been a while, right?
Yes.
It's certainly great to be here again at the podium to share ideas. I want to certainly add my own words of welcome, as Jennifer has earlier on, to you all and to those persons who are sharing with us on the World Wide Web. I thought I would share this morning some ideas from a book which I had the pleasure of receiving as a Christmas gift, and the most recent Christmas, from my daughter, who is here today. And the book is called A New Earth, Awakening to Your Life's Purpose. The author of this writing is Eckhart Tolle, who has written several books, including The Power of Now, and he's a very popular writer in the field of spirituality. I found this book most challenging. I found this book most illuminating. And I thought I would this morning share some ideas from this book with you all. Eckhart Tolle speaks about his inspiration for the title. At the outset, he said, referring to the Bible prophecy, which speaks of a new heaven and a new earth. Of course, we know from our study and we know from our practice that heaven references the inner realm of consciousness, while earth references the outer manifestation of form, and it's always a reflection of the inner. There are two questions which Eckhart Tolle posed in his introduction. First, is humanity ready for a transformation of consciousness? And the second question, can humanity defy the gravitational pull of materialism and rise above identification with form, which represents the impact that ego has on our thoughts, words, and actions? Tolle expresses the view of the early way showers, and the central message of way showers like Buddha and Jesus has not transformed most of humanity. These way showers spoke of humanity missing the mark. These messengers would say, look how you live. Look at the suffering you create. Look at the possibility of awakening from the dysfunction of human existence. However, Tolle positions that the world was not yet ready for those messages. Their simple yet powerful teachings became distorted and misinterpreted. Religions became divisive forces, identity of right and wrong, believers and non-believers. However, over time, more and more people as individuals are discovering the original depth that is hidden within their own spiritual traditions, at the same time as they're discovering that depth within themselves. They're realizing that how spiritual you are has nothing to do with what you believe in, but everything to do with your state of consciousness. So Tolle said the purpose of his book was to bring about a shift in consciousness and to awaken the reader. He was very clear. He said this book was not to add new information or new beliefs or to convince the reader of anything. It was not going to provide also an interesting reading, something that's interesting. You play around with concepts and you say, wow, that's interesting. No. Tolle said that was not my idea either. I had one idea, to bring about a shift in consciousness and to awaken the reader. Of course, in relevance to our spiritual community at the temple, you can be clearly classified as belonging to that minority of humanity who are recognizing and indeed participating in the transformation process by your shifting of your consciousness at an individual level and also subsequently and collectively within the community. Notwithstanding this, the process of transformation is ongoing, and there will always be opportunities to be exposed to various approaches aimed at building consciousness within the individual and within the community. Eckhart Tolle references the impressive and the undeniable achievements of humanity. He points out the sublime works of music, literature, painting, architecture, and sculpture. He writes of the radical changes brought about by science and technology. And these changes have enabled us to create what would have been described as miraculous 1 or 2 centuries ago. Yet science and technology have magnified the destructive impact on the planet, other life forms, and indeed the human community. Notwithstanding this, Tolle believes that the greatest achievement of humanity has been the recognition of its own dysfunction and the need for a new dimension of consciousness which transcends the old egoic-based mind patterns. That's what Tolle says. That in spite of all these great things that the human society has created, the most important thing is the recognition of its own dysfunction and the need for a new dimension of consciousness which transcends the old based mind patterns which are very ego-related. Tolle takes the position that it is absolutely critical to recognize the ego within each of us and how that ego state is reflected in how we think, how we speak, and how we act. And therefore, we felt it was important to know the basic mechanisms behind how the ego works so that we can recognize it. Tolle believes that what makes the recognition of ego possible is in itself the arising consciousness. Whenever you're recognizing the work of ego within yourself, you are experiencing an arising of consciousness. He says that light dissolves darkness. You can't fight darkness. Only light will dissolve darkness. And you can't fight ego. It's only the light of consciousness that can neutralize ego. Tolle speaks of ego being identified with form, with physical form, including words, thought forms, emotional forms. All these physical forms reinforce our unconnectedness with the whole and goes against our intrinsic connectedness with each other. For example, he says, I embodies the greatest error and the deepest truth, depending on how you use it. I embodies the greatest error and the deepest truth, depending how it's used. The I thought, when it becomes identified with gender, with possessions, with nationality, with race, with religion, with profession, is an ego state. Similarly, when it also becomes identified with the roles of mother, father, husband, wife, as well as accumulated knowledge or opinions or expertise. Now, let me make this clear, because Tolle makes it clear. There is nothing wrong with fulfilling different functions in the world. It cannot be otherwise. However, any identification with your role, to the extent that it takes you over and becomes a role that you play, is the opposite to an arising consciousness. We have roles, and there are functions, and that's how the world works. But to the extent that these roles overtake who you are, is the extent that it's opposite to an arising consciousness. He gives an example, and it's entitled The Story of the Monk with Sweaty Palms, which I'll share with you. Kazan, a Zen teacher and monk, was to officiate at the funeral of a famous nobleman. As he stood there waiting for the governor of the province and other lords and ladies to arrive, he noticed that the palms of his hands were sweaty. The next day, he called his disciples together and confessed he was not yet ready to be a true teacher. He explained to them that he still lacked the sameness of bearing before all human beings, whether beggars or kings. He was still unable to look through social roles and conceptual identities and see the sameness of beings in every human. He then left and became the pupil of another master. He returned to his former disciples 8 years later, having done the work and been enlightened. When I'm introduced at workshops where I'm presenting, and some of the introductions are very, very long, the first thing I say when I go up to the podium is, that's what I do. That's not who I am. So I've been trying to work on this for some time. So that brought back that memory to me when I'm introduced in workshops or other surroundings. When you speak about identification with things, Tolle speaks about the egoic mind being completely conditioned by the past. And it involves things, objects. It also involves structures. So my this and my that is a structure. My car, my house is things. And the egoic mind is conditioned by the past and involves those things. So ego identification with things creates attachment to things, Tolle says. He also says it can create obsession with things. And he advised it's a very good spiritual practice to observe whether your sense of self-worth is bound up with the things you possess by observing your anxiety level at the threat of loss of any of these things. Or conversely, whether the lack of certain things makes you feel inferior. So it's a good spiritual practice to check yourself, how you react in those set of circumstances. Ego tends to equate having with being. The ego is very subtle, you know, very subtle and very seductive. You have to work with your ego consistently. And so ego tends to equate having with being. I have, therefore I am, and the more I have, the more I am. And that's how the ego uses. So Tolle says, how do we let go attachment to things? Tolle says we should not even try. He says it is impossible to try. He continues by saying, attachment to things drops away by itself when you no longer need to identify yourself in them. Attachment to things drops away by itself when you no longer need to identify yourself in them. Once you're aware that you are identified with a thing, the identification is no longer total. The affirmation, I am the awareness that is aware that there is attachment, signifies the beginning of the transformation of the consciousness. I am the awareness that is aware that there is attachment, signifies the beginning of the transformation of the consciousness. Tolle refers the quotation from Jesus, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of God. And goes on to reference the poor in spirit as having no inner baggage or no identification with things or mental concepts. And he references to the kingdom of heaven as the profound joy of being. He points out another identification with the body, whether male or female. And so the sense of being a man or woman takes up, he says, a significant part of our life because it's about gender identity. And depending on the culture, the focus is either on gender in terms of physical appearance, gender roles, or responsibilities based on gender. In either circumstance, Tolle says, the sense of self-worth is bound up in external physical appearance. Now, Tolle is very specific that refraining from identification with the body does not mean that one neglects, despises, or no longer cares for it. On the contrary, he says, nurturing one's body through proper nutrition and exercise is a positive life feature. But he makes a difference about being caught up with the body or being one in being and doing what you do to make your body positive, whatever forms that you may use. Tolle speaks about role playing. His opinion that to do whatever is required of you in any situation without it becoming a role that you identify with is essential. Whatever is required of you in any situation without it becoming a role that you identify with is an essential lesson in the art of living, and that each one of us is here to learn. He's of the view that one becomes more powerful in whatever one does if the action is performed for its own sake rather than as a means to protect, enhance, or conform to role identity. And we see it around us all the time with the roles. People speak about their roles and their I can do this and I'm supposed to do this and you can't do that. And the power and the passion that is surrounding those roles speak to you as to where that person is in terms of identification with that particular role. When one does not play roles, it means that there's no ego in what you do. There's no secondary agenda. You're not trying to protect or strengthen yourself by roles. As a result, your related actions have greater power. I've worked with some very progressive chairpersons of companies, and some have been very egotistic and hit the board, almost take off their shoes in the boardroom and hit the board table. And I've worked with others who are just so progressive, so full of themselves as beings, and yet were so powerful. When those persons spoke to you on the phone, you had trust, you had confidence, you had clarity, you had all the ingredients of a team to build and to move forward with, as opposed to those who were fear-based, created an atmosphere of fear. You were not as free, you were not as trusting, you were not as easy in carrying out their policy directions. And so it is a very important point that Tolle makes. He also says that the secret of happiness is to always make present peace. The secret of happiness is to always make peace in the present moment. He positions that the present moment is the field on which the game of life happens. The present moment is the field on which the game of life happens. He said it cannot happen anywhere else. And he says there are 3 words that convey the secret of the art of living. And the 3 words are one with life. One with life. Being one with life is being one with now. Tolle goes further by saying, you don't live your life. And I found this interesting. You don't live your life, but life lives you. Life is a dancer, and you are the dance. Tolle states that whatever matters to you is not necessarily what you say or believe. It's not what you say or believe, but what your actions and reactions reveal as important and serious to you. So let's not care what somebody says or tells you what they believe. Look and see what they're serious about and how they react and act. A guide in a good spiritual practice is to ask yourself, what, if any, are the things that upset and disturb me? Ask yourself that question. and be guided by the answer. There eventually comes the awareness of all of us. And Tolle says that along with birth, growth, success, health, pleasure, victories, there's also loss, failure, sickness, aging, decay, pain, and transitions. The conventional thinking labels them as good and bad. But the universe is an indivisible whole in which all things are interconnected and nothing exists in isolation. He takes a position that one's actions become empowered when one chooses to be in a relationship of inner non-resistance with what happens. He seeks to demonstrate this by a story of a great Indian and spiritual teacher, which I'll share with you from his reading. Remember, years ago, it was Susan, when she gives her stories? Mm-hmm. I remember that when I thought I would do this. So, the Indian spiritual teacher, it's pretty long, but I'll try and go as fast as I can. He was a great Indian philosopher and spiritual teacher. His name was Krishnamaru. And he traveled almost continuously all over the world for more than 50 years, attempting to convey through words beyond content. At one of his talks in the latter part of his life, he surprised his audience by asking, "Do you want to know my secret?" Everyone became very alert. This was a great teacher. Eh? Many people in the audience had been coming to listen to him for 20 or 30 years and still failed to grasp the essence of his teaching. Finally, they said, after all these years, they would finally get to know what was his secret. And the secret was, he said, "I don't mind what happens. I don't mind what happens." And he made reference to another case in Japan where the Zen master Hakim lived in a town in Japan, and he was held in high regard, and many people came to him for spiritual teaching. It happened that the teenage daughter next door became pregnant. And when being questioned by her angry and scolding parents as to the identity of the father, she finally told them that he was Hakim, the Zen master. In great anger, the parents rushed over to Hakim and told him with much shouting and accusing that their daughter had confessed that he was the father. All he replied was, "Is that so?" The news of the scandal spread throughout the town and beyond, and the master lost his reputation. This did not trouble him. Nobody came to see him anymore. He remained unmoved. When the child was born, the parents brought the baby to Hakim and said, "You are the father, so you look after him." The master took loving care of the child. A year later, the mother remorsefully confessed to her parents that the real father of the child was a young man who worked at the butcher's shop. In great distress, they went to see Hakim to apologize and ask for forgiveness. "We are really sorry. We have come to take the baby back. Our daughter confessed that you are not the father." He said, "Is that so?" Tolle feels that the most important relationship we will have is the one we have with the present. He says, whatever the form of now takes is the relationship that we're having, the present. He believes that if a relationship with the present is dysfunctional, that dysfunction will be reflected in every relationship and every salutation that we encounter. We should ask ourselves if we want the present moment, which is inseparable from life, the present moment, which is inseparable from life, to be our friend or our enemy. The decision to make the present moment your friend is to end ego, since ego, as mentioned earlier, is conditioned by the past and will therefore project into your future. He feels that our inner purpose is to awaken, and that we share that awakening with every other person on the planet, because that, in fact, is the purpose of humanity. This book speaks mainly of our inner purpose, but life has an inner purpose and an outer purpose, so intertwined that it's impossible to speak of one without referring to the other. Finding and living in alignment with the inner purpose is the foundation for fulfilling your outer purpose. It is the basis for true success. And Tolle ended his book by speaking about the 3 modalities of awakened doing. The 3 modalities of awakened doing: acceptance, enjoyment, and enthusiasm. He warned us to be vigilant to ensure that one of them operates whenever we're engaged in doing anything at all, from the simplest to the most complex task. In acceptance, he says, whatever you cannot enjoy doing, you can at least accept that this is what you have to do. Acceptance means, for now, this is what this situation, this moment requires me to do, and so I do it willingly. Tolle says, if you can neither enjoy nor bring acceptance to what you do, stop it. It is too important. Stop it. Because if you don't do that, you're not taking responsibility for the only thing you can choose and take responsibility for, which also happens to be the one thing that really matters, which is your state of consciousness. And your state of consciousness is your life. And when he speaks about joy, he says joy is a dynamic aspect of being. Joy does not come from what you do. It flows into what you do, and thus into the world from deep within you. Joy does not come from what you do. It flows into what you do, and thus into the world from deep within you. The joy of being is the joy of being conscious. And in relation to enthusiasm, Tolle says enjoyment of what you're doing combined with a goal or with a vision that you work toward, that becomes enthusiasm. Even though you have a goal, what you're doing in the present moment needs to remain the focal point of your attention. And he makes a very important point: your goal should not be an inflated image of yourself, because that is ego. Preferably your goal should point towards an activity that you can share through interconnectedness with other human beings. Tolle says, and I saw a new heaven and a new earth. He writes that the foundation for a new earth is a new heaven. And a new heaven is the awakened consciousness. The earth is only its outer reflection. Tolle tells his readers that a new heaven and a new earth are arising within them at this moment. In other words, as you read, the arising consciousness is an opportunity for it to create. He speaks of Jesus' prediction, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. The meek are the egoless, who have awakened to their true nature as conscious beings. They embody the awakened consciousness that is changing all aspects of life on our planet. That's Tolle's view of the meek. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. He writes with a lot of confidence in his last sentence that a new species is arising on the planet, and you are it. Thank you.
Wow. Friends, I tell you, hold on to your seat, you know. I know what I was in for. Wow, what a treat. Clive, there is just no way to summarize all of that. No. I'm telling you, if you weren't here and if you didn't listen online, go home and listen it again. But my key takeaway from you is that the key to happiness lies in the present moment. And for each of us, we ought to be living each of our present moment in this awareness. Thank you, Clive. I tell you. Awesome. Wow, Practitioner Sundays, this is what it's all about. And so now, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce our musical item for this morning. Again, we're in for another treat. I secretly told her that she's becoming my Practitioner Sunday musical item. But let me welcome to the podium at this time, Mrs. Diandra Sukhu for this morning's item. Diandra.
Good morning, Temple family.
Good morning, Diandra.
Don't lose your way with each passing day. You've come
beautiful. Thank you, Diandra. Beautiful. Awesome. So special. Thank you for that. And now, friends, please join me in the prayer of Jamaica. Could you please stand? It's on the flyer in your program and on screen. Together,
The
radiant light of God's love is now flowing through us and from us to everything and everyone it touches. The eternal light of God's love now completely fills, covers, and surrounds our island Jamaica. The glowing intensity of the light of God's love now interpenetrates and awakens within the hearts and minds of our countrymen and women the truths of life which set free. The light of God's love is growing and glowing in intensity in the hearts and minds of mankind everywhere. Love, health, harmony, goodwill, peace, uprightness, integrity, joy, prosperity, kindness, and our oneness under God are now established, and so it is. Now, friends, please join me in our love offering blessing. As we take our loving gifts in our hands, together we say the blessing on the envelope, words on screen, together. Lovingly I give, joyfully I receive. Be thou fruitful, increase and multiply. Bless, prosper, and enrich everyone whom you touch, and replenish all of my financial affairs. So be it. Thank you, Father, and so it is. And now join me as you're standing in our second hymn selection. It's on the flyer in your program, My Creative Intention. Invite Clive back to the podium for a closing affirmative prayer and to bless our love offering. Clive.
Let us together recognize the presence of God. That infinite intelligence, omniscient being, perfect expressions of love, health, harmony, health, all the good things that we can conceive. It's all God. And let us together recognize that we are one with all that God is. And as we make this recognition and acceptance, all that we are and all that we express are covered with the idea of goodness, perfection, joy, and peace. So we give thanks that we are able to gather together this morning to share in the sanctuary and also via the World Wide Web the ideas that shift consciousness towards a transformed humanity. We give thanks to know that we can participate in this that we call a Sunday morning service at the Center for Spiritual Living, and know it's a perfect idea in the mind of God. We give thanks for the gifts that have entered the temple, and we know that each giver, as he or she has chosen, is equally blessed. We are here together as one community, but we move forth in our individual pathways. We know that our pathways are safe, they're secure, and they're illumined with the understanding of that which we are. One with God's presence and one with God's power. We all are one with all that God is. We give thanks that we understand this. We give thanks that we accept this. And we give thanks that we can express this in all the things that we do and say today and all the other days. And we give thanks and praise that all this is so, and so it is. And our peace song will be, the word light will be used this morning.
To join us immediately following this morning's service for Discovery with Reverend Michael Record in the sanctuary, and he'll be speaking on effective communication. And then join us on Tuesday at 6 p.m. when practitioner Steve Golden will host our spiritual mind healing service. And then again, join us for prayer power on Thursday at 6, and come back next Sunday morning for another beautiful Sunday morning celebration. We thank you all for being here. Have a wonderful week.